So today we're going to take a look at what's going to happen if Turkey tries to form an empire in the modern day. This video is going to be very unrealistic. All the events that are going to happen are purely fictional. Major alliances like NATO, CSTO, the EU or the UND do not exist in my videos. If they would exist, they would not let these countries to expand. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, also to the second channel where I'm uploading Age of History 3 videos. But with all those things said, now let's get right into the video. Turkey in the modern day is a pretty strong country. So for them to form an empire in the modern day, it's not going to be that hard. We can see that without even having to militarize their country, they go ahead and declare war on Syria. Now, even though after the Syrian civil war, they kind of have better relations now, but we're just assuming that Turkey is forming an empire, so this is the only thing they can do. But yeah, we can see that the Turks now start to push down, and they push down the Syrian coast. Because Syria was already in a civil war, they are not as strong, so the Turks are not facing too many difficulties down here. We can see that they also start to push into the Kurdish regions, and they do some not so nice things. Down here we can see that eventually they were able to capture Damascus, and with the fall of Damascus, a lot of regions in Syria now go ahead and surrender. We can see that these troops now push down, making a spearhead and eventually meeting up with these troops. And because Syria got split up, the remaining parts of Syria go ahead and surrender as they lost most of their armies. And in a peace negotiation, we can see that all of Syria got completely annexed by the Turkish Empire. Even though this is very unrealistic because the Turks would never annex Syria, because then the Syrians would just go to Turkey. The Turks do not want that to happen, but yeah, for the sake of this scenario, we're assuming that happened. Once again, without even having to militarize their country, we can see that they declare war on Lebanon. The Turks storm into Lebanon. Yeah, the country falls within weeks. Yet again, we can see that all of Lebanon got completely annexed by the Turkish Empire. And now every single one of Turkey's neighbors they're pretty worried about themselves. The Turks are trying to revive the Ottoman Empire maybe. So every single country around the Turkish Empire is going to prepare. That's the only thing they can do. But yeah, at this point in the wars, we can see that the Turks build up an army. They are recruiting troops from all over the country, and they're also importing new weapons. We can see that they also develop a pretty formidable navy in the Mediterranean Sea. And let's just say that they might have an agenda. They might want to reform the Ottoman Empire, which at its peak was a huge empire. But yeah, after all of this militarization, we can see that the Turks continue with their expansion. Now they go ahead and declare war on Jordan. Jordan is a pretty weak country. I don't think they would be able to defend against the mighty Turks. We can see that the Turkish forces now push into Jordan. They cut Jordan into two parts. The capital city of Amman was taken. These parts go ahead and surrender. And from here, the Jordan military faces devastation. And so at some point after getting destroyed, they go ahead and surrender. And this was another decisive victory for the Turkish Empire. As with this, they were able to expand all the way to the south, now gaining access to the Red Sea too. And interesting events take place. Because of the death and destruction in Palestine, we can see that they kind of joined the Turks better than getting bombed. So yeah, at this point, we can see that the Turks call back their troops, and the Turk troops are now crossing into Anatolia, and they've now reached the western borders. These guys are able to go on military campaigns because, well, they have the strength right now. Anyways, because there is no NATO, I mean, that is a huge problem for some of these countries. We can see that the Turks now want to step into Europe again, just like the old times. They go ahead and declare war on the Bulgarians, which is something they did about 600 or 700 years ago. But this time, the Turks have way more troops. We can see that the Turks now start to push into Bulgaria. They capture the coastal regions and the main cities of Varna. And now we can see that they start to push into the mainland. The troops up in the north now follow the Danube River. The Bulgarians do send their own troops on the front lines, but it is just not enough. The troops up here now start to push down, eventually meeting up with the troops down here. These encircled regions go ahead and surrender, and now a combined army pushes into Bulgaria, once again following the Danube River. And at this point, most of the Bulgarian armies were destroyed. Sofia was also kind of captured, and yeah, with all of this chaos, we can see that the remaining parts of Bulgaria surrender. This was a huge success for the Turkish Empire, and in a peace negotiation, we can see that all of Bulgaria got completely annexed by the Turkish Empire. They've stepped foot into Europe again, which is a huge blow to these countries who are now really worried. But because of all of these constant wars, the Turks did lose a lot of military equipment, their economy also kind of went down, and so they are going to try to rebuild everything. In the meantime, they also find themselves a good ally, which is Egypt. Pretty much everybody else hates them, especially the Iranians and the Saudi Arabians. Yeah, we can see that the Turks are now trying to rebuild their economy, also rebuilding their military. Their navy is still formidable, but you know, they lost a lot of troops. But here, unfortunately for the Turks, something very devastating happens. We can see that over here in Europe, because these guys really were not happy with the expansion. Some of these countries form a coalition against the Turks, and these countries include Greece, Romania, as well as the Serbs. The coalition countries have a very formidable army. I don't know how the Turks are gonna be able to fight them back, especially because of the fact that they were rebuilding. Yeah, now let's see. Because the coalition countries were prepared for this, they have an upper hand here. In the start, we can see that the Greek troops now push into Turkey. They're pushing into the Thracian parts. They eventually were able to capture Gallipoli, but they're not able to push into the Asian parts of Turkey. Up here, we can see that the Romanians now cross the Danube, and now they start to push into Turkish Bulgaria, making some progress, but there's still some level of resistance. The Serbs also try to make their small push, although not very successful, but they're still trying. The Greeks are the most successful because they have the most amount of hatred for the Turks, and so they're trying to disconnect the Bulgarian regions from the mainland. We can see that they were able to capture Edirne, but they're still not able to cut off Bulgaria from the Turks. The Romanians continue their push. Now they're pushing down the coast, but to Turkey's aid, we can see that the Egyptians in the south also joined this war. Now, I'm not able to show it right now because the war up here is already going on, but the Egyptians started to send in some of their troops to help the Turks in Europe. Unfortunately for the Turks, they got cut off from the Bulgarian regions. Some of the Turk troops were here who are now encircled. The Serbs also continued their push. They were eventually able to capture Sofia, which is a huge blow to the Turkish morale. And now the Greek troops are pushing towards Istanbul. The Turks really cannot lose that city, and so they're trying their best to rebuild their army as fast as possible. The Turks in Bulgaria are really getting devastated. Now they are even cut off from the Black Sea, which means that they're on their own. With the arrival of some of the Egyptian troops, the Greeks are kind of stalemated here, and in the meantime, we can see that the Turks were also able to rebuild their army, just as good as the combined armies of all these countries. But if the Turks want to win this war, they won't be able to do it on their own or with the help from the Egyptians. Instead, we can see that they had another trick up their sleeve. They were able to force the Kosovars as well as the Bosnians to join this war. I know this is pretty weird, but they do come to help out Turkey. This is not going to affect the war too much, but yeah, the Turks now send all of their armies to the front lines. They do push the Greeks a little bit back. The Romanians continue their push in Bulgaria, securing even more regions now. But over here in Serbia, we can see that because this was very unexpected and because they had most of their armies in Bulgaria, Bosnians were able to push in. So did the Kosovars, just a little bit of progress, but this is still a lot. The Bosnians eventually get to the capital city of Belgrade, but they haven't captured it. Another country that joins in is Albania. They also send their troops to the front lines, and things are not looking good for Serbia here. Eventually, we can see that Belgrade was captured, and with the capture of Belgrade, the Serbs are really worried for their own existence, so they kind of try to get out of this war, and so all of their armies surrender. We can see that all of the troops from Bosnia, Kosovo, as well as Albania enter Bulgaria. The Albanians also started pushing to Greece. Just some progress, but this is still a lot. And with the rebuilding of a lot of Turkish troops, and with the arrival of even more Egyptian troops, we can see that the coalition forces now get pushed back. Gallipoli was recaptured, and the Turks now finally enter Bulgaria after so long. The Albanians get pushed back in Greece, and Greece starts their own push into Albania. Up in the north, we can see that the Bosnians now started pushing to Romania, who also have some support from the Turks. This is a huge panic for Romania, as now they're fighting a two-front war. They get pushed back in Bulgaria, until eventually they decide to go defensive mode. The Greeks get pushed back, and the Turks now started pushing to Romania, eventually being able to capture Bucharest because most of their armies were concentrated up here. The Romanians also kind of try to peace out from this war, and now a combined force of Turkish, Egyptian, Albanian, Kosovars, as well as Bosnians troops start to push into Greece. Things are not looking good for these guys. Even more Turkish troops now arrive on the front lines. They arrive from Romania, and yeah, the Greeks really really get pushed back. One army now pushes down. They were eventually able to capture Athens, the capital of Greece, and with that the remaining parts of Greece go ahead and surrender. And now we're gonna take a look at a peace negotiation here. And in a peace negotiation, we can see that all of these parts of Romania were completely annexed. Serbia is now kind of split up. The Bosnians took over the northern part. Kosovo got its full independence and is now recognized. Albania got some of Greece, and the remaining parts of Greece were taken by the Turks. The Egyptians got war reparations. The winner of this coalition was somehow Turkey, even though it was near to impossible for them to win this war. But yeah, it's gonna take them a lot of time to come out of this. We can see that after decades, they send an ultimatum to Cyprus. They still have the northern part, but the southern parts also surrender. And we can see that they send another ultimatum to Iraq. Who says no? Yeah, this kind of happens. Unfortunately for the Iraqis, at this point the Turkish military is one of the best in the world. They have rebuilt, and we can see that they start a push into Iraq, and they're pushing down. They sent their navy through the Red Sea, and they somehow were able to enter the Persian Gulf. They make a naval landing down here, and now they start to push up the Euphrates River. Because the Iraqis concentrated most of their forces up here, they were not able to push the Turks back down south. They lost their capital city of Baghdad. Up in the north, their armies get absolutely destroyed. These troops now try to meet up. They kind of do that successfully. Now they start to push around. The eastern parts of Iraq go ahead and surrender. The Turks now really push in, making these kinds of spearheads, and we can see that the remaining parts of Iraq go ahead and surrender. It was better off to just accept the ultimatum. All of this destruction could have been avoided. And in a peace negotiation, we can see that all of Iraq got completely annexed by the Turkish Empire. Things are going great for these guys. They have lands in Eastern Europe. They also have a huge portion of the Middle East. And is this going to be enough for them? Definitely not. They send another ultimatum to Kuwait. They accept the ultimatum. All that oil money now goes to Turkey. And finally, we can see that they send another ultimatum to Israel. Israel does not accept the ultimatum. And even though in real life the United States would come to the rescue of Israel, because this scenario is unrealistic, that is not going to happen. The Egyptians also joined this war, and we can see that the Turkish troops now push into Israel from the north, securing some of these regions. The Egyptians also push in, meeting up with the Turks here, and combined army now pushes up, securing a lot of regions. Some troops now enter from here, and a huge Turkish army now pushes into Jerusalem, capturing the capital city. These parts surrender, and after months of fighting, we can see that all of Israel has now fallen. Israel got split up between the Egyptians and the Ottomans. Oh, I mean the Turks. But yeah, this is pretty much the Turkish Empire at its peak. At this point, everyone around them hates them, so I won't be surprised if everyone forms a coalition against them again. This time, it may be the Ukrainians, the Saudi Arabians, or the Iranians, or maybe every single one of these guys. But if you want to see any of that happen, make sure to subscribe to the channel, also like the video, check out the other videos, and this is going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me what you guys want to see in the future, and thank you for watching.